Hello there ladies and gentlemen, TX141 here, also known as Paul, bringing you another Ace in a Day gameplay for the arcade mode of War Thunder. In today's instalment, I shall be concluding my review of the Yakovlev Yak-3. To give you a small historical overview on the Yak-3 and the version we see here in War Thunder, the Yakovlev Yak-3 was the successor to the already successful Yak-1 project. A design by Yakovlev, the Yakovlev Yak-1 was to see a future upgrade in 1943 which was under the designation of Yak-1M. Designed to replace the already in service Yak-1B types, the Yak-1M was to feature a smaller, lighter airframe. An airframe which would encourage greater performance with the same engine, a Klimov M105PF engine, providing 1,300 horsepower. During the summer of 1943, test pilots recorded that the Yak-1M prototype was a plane which performed way better than the already in service Yak-1. Indeed, so much better that they requested that this Yak-1M be designated a whole new fighter type, hence the origin of the Yak-3 class. Upon this success, Yakovlev made sure that the Yak-3 was to go straight into production by June of 1944, being rolled out into operational service by July of the same year. Units flying the Yak-3 achieved notable success, with Luftwaffe pilots in Messerschmitt 109s and indeed Focke-Wulf 190s being told to avoid engaging Yak-3s below 5,000 metres due to the low to mid altitude performance of the Yak-3 being domitable by comparison with Luftwaffe contemporaries. Moreover, as well as the Russian Air Force, the Yak-3 was also introduced in 1944 to the Normandy-Neyman Air Group, a group of French pilots, with Marcel Albert, their top ace, being recorded to have said that the Yak-3 was the equal of, if not superior, to the P-51 Mustang and the Supermarine Spitfire in his opinion. The Yak-3 which we see here was the first and main production type, fielding one 20mm Shvat cannon firing through the propeller hub and two 12.7mm machine guns firing from above the prop. So, with our historical overview out of the way, how exactly does the Yak-3 stack up in War Thunder? Well, in this ground strike gameplay on the map port, I have the following setup: Omni-purpose ammunition for the 20mm cannon, air target ammunition for the machine guns, 500m gun convergence and a 30-minute fuel load. We start off with this engagement with a P-39 Airacobra, trying to shake them off the back of a friendly Messerschmitt 109 Friedrich Zwei. It's worth noting that for every manoeuvre the Airacobra is performing to stay on the tail of our Messerschmitt 109, we're able to use our stronger manoeuvrability and indeed our stronger rudder in order to stay behind our opponent and finish them off. We then descend onto a Wellington Mark 1C, putting in a notable amount of ammunition to achieve a nice critical, allowing our friendly Messerschmitt 109 to use their rockets in order to achieve the kill. With 2 kills already in the bag, and indeed 1 assist, it's worth noting the overall playstyle that I'm employing here. As you saw at the start of the game, I climbed up to roughly 3,000 to 4,000 metres. The idea in doing this is to make sure I can match any of the energetic types I may face. The Yak-3 has brilliant performance at low to mid altitude, and in game the performance seems to be great all the way up to 4,000 metres, at which point the engine performance gradually drops off. This means that you're able to climb with more of the energetic types such as Messerschmitt 109s and P-39 Airacobras up to this given altitude, at which point they will start to outperform you. If you can catch these guys off guard up to 3,000 to 4,000 metres, you will be able to outperform them incredibly well and force them back down to lower altitudes, or force them to fall victim to your cannon and 2 machine guns. Once you've achieved this overall altitude superiority, in all cases minus the medium to heavy bombers, you can then, as I do here, start to descend to lower altitudes where the Yak-3's performance comes to life even more, and begin to harass foes in the middle of furballs and at lower altitudes by doing energetic runs and also turn fighting when and where appropriate. As you can see over the course of this game, I try to avoid engaging any enemy bombers, such as you see here with that B-25. I make sure they're not coming towards me with their machine guns, simply because, and I'll go on to this weakness later, the armament is insufficient. Descending on our P400, it's time to note the overall manoeuvrability range, as we've already discussed the altitude range of this plane. You'll see as I descend on the P400 here, trying to get as close as possible before opening fire to achieve kill number 3, that the roll rate of the Yak-3 seems to stiffen at about 600 km an hour. Not to an exceptional point, but it stiffens notably, being sort of the equal to a Typhoon Mark 1B at standard speeds. Ergo, if you want to make sure your roll rate is at its maximum, you'll need to stick between speeds of 350 km an hour to 550 km an hour. Of course, at speeds lower than 350 km an hour, your roll rate is still superb, but the overall performance of your plane is not that which you should expect. By keeping to speeds of 350 to 550 km an hour, you've got a very powerful airframe in your hands, with a decent roll rate, a decent turn circle, and a very powerful rudder. All three combined, in combination with the Klimov engine, meaning that you're able to outperform a given foe in one, if not a multitude of areas. Talking about the turn circle, you are unable to outturn planes such as a Supermarine Spitfire or a Raisin. The Raisin you will not be able to outturn completely regardless of speed. However, the Supermarine Spitfire, and I'm talking about the Spitfire Mark 5B here, and this can be extended to Spitfire Mark 9s, you can outturn the Spitfire at high speed, simply because you have the roll rate and the rudder authority to do so. However, dropping below speeds of 400 km an hour, the Spitfire will gain the upper hand. And talking about upper hand, I descend on that P-40 Kitty Hawk to wipe out their tail and achieve my ace. Having gone into the overall performance, and indeed I like to try and keep my speed to 400 km an hour on average where necessary, I'm now going to go into a couple more weaknesses of the plane. The armament. Now, as I get a brief hit on that Wellington before breaking off to avoid their gunners, the armament is sufficient in taking out fighters and indeed lightly armoured targets. So we're talking about bombers such as the SM-72-9 and the IL-4, and also ground attackers such as Sturmovix. However, going for medium to heavy bombers is an absolute nightmare, simply because your armament will not do the damage quickly enough before the enemy gunners can get a shot on you. If you can kill the enemy gunners, then it's advisable to go for the engines or the wings, specifically those two areas, because if you target them, you'll be able to take the bomber down much more quickly and avoid the risk of running out of ammunition. Indeed, with only 500 12.7mm machine gun ammunition rounds and only 120 20mm cannon ammunition rounds, you're in a bit of a sticky situation when needing to expend ammo over a large period of time. Descending as KI-45, we're going to see the manoeuvrability of the Yak-3 come into another position. As I dodge what was a very close head-on ram pass and break away of an F4F Wildcat coming in on me, notice how long it takes them before they can actually get within firing range, due to the overall energy retention of my plane. Indeed, I'm able to brake sharply up, allowing a friendly P-40E to hit the Wildcat on the tail, meaning that I'm safe. However, at this point I'm unable to check behind me because I'm worrying whether I'm taking fire from a friendly or an enemy plane, and so I decide to stay tight and brake my speed, allowing me to achieve a hit on the F4F Wildcat's elevator, and then brake away. With another assist in the bag, I try braking around on an I-16 Type 27 Ishak, using my rudder in order to make sure I can get a small set of hits on them, but nothing that's too critical. As the Ishak brakes around, I decide to use my engine power in order to brake away, and my superior acceleration. As you can see here, I can put the distance between myself and the Ishak very quickly, before they're forced to turn around to re-engage a friendly plane. Returning to the question of armament. So, with that lack of ammunition and indeed that lack of firepower to attack heavier targets, the good news is, because all the armament is concentrated in the nose, you'll be able to hit targets very hard when they come into your firing line. As you see with that Ki-61, we achieved a nice critical in a very short period of time due to the concentration of our firepower, which gets better and better at closer and closer ranges. Although don't be afraid to spray a few shots at long range, especially in a head-on. You never know what you might hit, including a number of engines. With that weakness considered, we now come on to one of the more important weaknesses, durability. And this is really, again, a reiteration of why I do not attack bombers in this plane. The combination of a wood-metal structure means that you'll be unable to take a significant portion of hits. Indeed, there's quite the risk of being set on fire, although you do have the self-sealing fuel tanks, I believe, and there's moreover a risk of just losing control surfaces quite rapidly. Ergo, you're going to have to be quite conservative in your approach when attacking bombers or large groups of fighters, or indeed engaging in a furball. With kill number 6 achieved on that flaming Ki-61, we loop over now and we reflect more on the strengths of this plane. I've already discussed the concentration of the armament in the nose, the overall manoeuvrability and engine power, but now I'd like to also go on to how user-friendly this plane is. From stock, the Yak-3 performs quite well, and indeed if you've flown the Yak-1, you're going to be used to flying this plane very quickly, because it's literally a Yak-1 on steroids, in pretty much all regards. So we descend on that MiG-334 to shake them off a friendly tail, and get our 7th kill. It's worth noting that this plane is a good plane to develop your skills for spatial awareness on, because as I've said from the beginning, I like to be very in and out in my approach, making sure to be quick, nimble and deft in my shots. Indeed, having hit that Hurricane Mark II very hard on the right wing, I now brake round again to finish them off with my remaining 20mm ammunition while my 12.7s reload. Kill number 8 in the bag. I now level out, and again we build speed so rapidly it's almost as if the engine is trying to escape from the airframe, and actually that's something you should be aware of. You will sometimes need to bleed speed, and in order to do that you're going to need to switch off the engine, and that is more important in this plane than most other planes. You can't afford to leave the engine running while you've got landing flaps down per se. With a number of fighters in range, I decide to attack an enemy Spitfire Mark IIB that's chasing an F2A1 Buffalo. And in this very tight turn, I managed to finish them off for a 9th kill, dodging their floating wreck. I then come around on a Spitfire Mark I, and with only 2 cannon rounds left, I put them into the enemy plane's wing, achieving a crit, which will eventually, I hope, develop into an assist. Pardon me. And really, that's exactly how this plane seems to perform, regardless of the matchup you get. Indeed, you will face a number of energetic types, and types that can outturn you. However, you've got the means to always deal with those opponents. And with 9 kills and 3 assists now in the bag, I come around, hoping to get my 10th. Unfortunately that's not the case as the game comes to its end, and I start to wave my wings about in celebration. Ergo, it's now time to take a look at the stats. To reflect, with 9 kills and 3 assists, we earned 25,412 silver lines. Moreover, we earned 1,631 research points, with all of those going towards our research on the Yak-9P. We conclude by noting that the Yakovlev Yak-3 is much like its historical counterpart, a plane which is brilliant if not one of the best for altitudes of 4,000 metres or below, finding a wonderful niche below 2,000 metres, simply because you've got all the assets you need in order to become a fine fighter ace. An engine which has a brilliant acceleration and indeed power rate, an armament which is very concentrated and therefore lethal at close and even longer ranges for the accurate trigger finger, and you've also got a plane with control surfaces that react well, as pilots noted historically. You've got a roll rate which is decent, a rudder which is incredibly powerful, and an elevator response which is quite significant by comparison with other planes which have weaker elevators. Ergo, this is a plane which makes for a very good ace maker, in terms of its ability to bring the novice pilot up to an appreciable standard. And if you've already flown the Yak-1B, you'll be very used to flying the Yak-3 after a couple of games, even in stock condition, because this plane takes the Yak-1 to a whole new level. We'll shortly be comparing our performance with the rest of our teammates. However, one other thing to reflect is that there is a Yak-3P to follow on from this, and I highly look forward to reviewing that, simply because it should be the exact same plane, but with a slightly lighter airframe, as far as I know historically, and 320mm. However, I digress, and as we look at our performance with the rest of our team, we see that we came first, not by a huge margin, but by the fact that we contributed to the firefight when and where necessary, getting a number of enemy fighters off of friendly tails, and also making the most of our plane in order to achieve an equality at higher altitudes before descending into a harassment mode at lower altitudes. Ergo, if you're looking for a Yak that can both talk the talk and walk the walk, then this Yak is the Yak for you. So I've been TX141, and if you've enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder videos on my channel. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and good luck in the skies.